Let's see. Okay, good evening, everyone. It's Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. We're live on all channels, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and our own vashiva.com/live. So welcome, this is Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. Today we're going to be continuing our series on cardiovascular health, and we're going to be talking about nattokinase. First of all, a lot of people don't know what is natto, however you want to pronounce it. It's either natto, or nattokinase, and we're going to discuss that and its importance in cardiovascular health. So as people join, we'll wait. It's a little bit late, but I'll give you an update on what we've been up to and why I've been a little bit delayed doing some of our cardiovascular health series videos, and then we'll start. So great to have people on. We have people joining us again, so we'll wait as people are coming. Good. Welcome, everyone. Great. Let me bring up our slide here as people are coming in. We're doing today on nattokinase. Let me set everything up here. Oops, wrong one. All right, here we go. So if everyone's having a good evening or a good morning, wherever part of the world you are, and let's go here. Wait till people are coming in. All right, good evening, everyone. We're going to be doing our talk on nattokinase. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Some people say nattokinase, and we'll see if everything's set up here for it. Okay. Make sure we have some juice here for our phone. Okay. As people are joining, we're going to be sharing about, we're going to do a slide series also on this, on nattokinase. Let me bring that up. All right, here we go. All right. So let's see, are we set on Instagram here? Good. So we're going to just wait for a couple more people to join. Thank you. All right, let's begin. All right, everyone. Good evening. We're going to be speaking about a very, very interesting compound called nattokinase. And we're going to talk about its value for cardiovascular health. And I think you're going to enjoy this because last week I did a talk on cardiovascular health related to a very interesting compound called arginine. I wanted to do caffeine, which I've set up. I'm going to do tomorrow morning. But today I wanted to do on nattokinase. And so let's just jump right into it. And as people are coming in, one thing I want to mention to everyone that's important for people to understand is that you may know that I'm in the middle of two federal lawsuits, which I believe are going to be landmark lawsuits. And I have a major hearing coming up on May 20th of this week coming up, which is next Thursday. So I've been preparing for that. It's a lot of work, as you know, that I'm going after the fact that the government contacted and strongly encouraged Twitter to take me off Twitter. It's not anything to do, in my opinion, with Twitter. Twitter is its own entity. My beef is with the government of Massachusetts. When I ran as a federal candidate, they violated my political speech. They contacted Twitter. So that's a very, very important lawsuit. I'll talk more about it later on. So I encourage everyone to look into this, because this goes at the heart, from a systems approach, of the fact that, big tech doesn't just exist on their own. When the government says jump, they jump. The government contacted Twitter because I had exposed that the government officials were violating federal law. And in order to conceal that, they contacted Twitter. So this is much, much deeper. So, but everyone knows that here at VA Shiva, we take a systems approach to understanding everything. And the systems approach is really about raising your consciousness as a human being. And that systems approach allows you to understand your body as a system. You can look at compounds as systems, the computer as a system, politics as a system. But there is a fundamental science that interconnects everything in the universe. People have talked about it from the philosophical level, religious level, spiritual. But there is a tangible science that you can understand to raise your own consciousness. And that is what I am dedicated to. And we've created the VA Shiva platform, where we offer you education of the foundations of system science. We offer you the communication tools, social media tools, independent of big tech, so you can build a community, and then you can do activism on it. And the videos that I do on a regular basis, or I try to do on a regular basis, on the health aspects, is to use the CytoSolve technology to start helping you understand how foods you eat, compounds that are in our environment, how things that occur in the environment are not isolated things, but they interact with your body as a system. So that's what we're doing today. We're going to look at the cardiovascular system, and then we're going to look at a product called Nattokinase, it's the compound, and how that affects your cardiovascular system. So let's just jump right into it. And I'm going to, I've set up a set of slides here. So let's go right into it here. So I think we got everything set up here for our folks here. Okay, there we go. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger for our folks on Instagram so they can see it a little bit bigger there. Okay. All right. And I hope everyone on Instagram world is also good, and everyone out there is having a good evening. All right, so let's just jump right into it. And so what is Nattokinase? Let's just start into it. By the way, everyone can go to vashiva.com, where you can find more about the movement and the platform. And before I start, I want to just play a quick video so everyone understands this journey to systems and why a systems approach is extremely important. So let me just stop this for a second. I just want to bring up the typical video I play to all newcomers, so it helps you understand the journey I've taken to take a systems approach to what you see in the world. So let me bring that up right here. Welcome to VA Shiva. VA Shiva is a product of my journey across East and West, science and tradition, ancient and modern, that brings you the science of systems so you can become a force for truth, freedom, health. VA Shiva is a platform of revolutionary education, community building, and weaponry for unleashing local activism. My journey to VA Shiva begins in the chaos of Bombay, where I experienced diverse religions, languages, castes, and in a small village that had no running water, no electricity, where my grandmother, a poor village farmer, practiced Siddha, an ancient system of Indian medicine over 10,000 years old. She observed one's face, the art of Samudrika Lakshanam, to understand a body's unique constitution, allowing her to deliver the right medicine for the right person at the right time.
Watching my grandmother heal others, I was inspired to study medicine, but I was also aware of the corrupt caste system of India, which denigrated a human being, where my family were considered low-caste untouchables, where one's birth determined one's destiny. The grit and determination of my mother and father led them to get educated and to come to America, a 1 in a trillion event. Their actions inspired me to work hard and excel. While in 9th grade, I attended New York University in a computer science program, and subsequently, at the age of 14, was given a full-time job as a research fellow at what is now known as Rutgers Medical School in the heart of Newark, New Jersey. There I investigated the system of sleep using mathematics, computer science, and biology for sudden infant death syndrome. It was there in Newark where I invented email, when I was the first to convert every feature of the physical, paper-based interoffice mail system, including inbox, outbox, memo, carbon copy, blind carbon copy, attachments, into its electronic equivalent, a system which I named email, a term that I was the first to coin. On August 30th, 1982, I was awarded the first U.S. copyright for the invention of this system, recognizing me as the inventor of email. At that time, copyright was the only way to protect software inventions. I went on to MIT, where I earned 4 degrees across multiple systems of engineering: electrical, mechanical, design, biological. That training led me to invent many other systems for advancing humankind. EchoMail, the world's first intelligent email management system. Cytosolve, a computational biology system for eliminating animal testing to discover new medicines faster, cheaper, and safer. And to the creation of a whole systems methodology for certifying clean food. These innovations led me back on a Fulbright to India, where I discovered the missing link between Eastern medicine and Western systems theory, honoring my grandmother, to develop Your Body, Your System, a powerful tool that will help you understand how your body is a system and how the inputs of food, supplements, and exercise bring your body back to its natural system state. And Systems Health, an integrative educational discipline that is now integrated into the Be Enslaved platform that will enable you to learn the science of systems, the science of everything, be it your body as a system or our society and politics as a system, to reveal the foundational interrelationships between truth, freedom, health. Now is the time for you to be the light, learn the science of systems, build community, and weaponize yourself to unleash the activism necessary to deliver truth, freedom, health in your local community. Welcome to VA Shiva.
All right, welcome everyone. Good evening. So that was just our intro video, which will give you an idea of the power of systems thinking. Everyone who's interested, I want all of you to support you, and I'll come back to this, because where we are right now in the development of societies, people need to raise their consciousness. This is not about left or right. It's about raising people's consciousness. So the good news is that there is a foundational way that all of you can go through that process by taking an approach to understanding that everything in the universe is interconnected. And there's a science to understand that, and that is the science of systems. And so our platform is educating people on that. It's a revolutionary science. It is a way that you can become a systems revolutionary. But we offer the education, we offer the community building tools independent of big tech, and we offer you programs that you can actually, in some ways, have a laboratory where you can be an activist in your local communities, exercising the science with community on the ground. All right. So, but as a part of this educational program, I also do some deep scientific analysis from, I try to do it every day, depending on my schedule, but it's a public service we do using a very powerful technology called Cytosolve to understand the interconnections of how different things in the world affect our body. And we look at different systems. Our body is a system. The whole body is a system. We have different subsystems in it. We spent probably the last 6 months talking about the immune system. Today, we're now in the phase, we're going to talk about the cardiovascular system, which is a system that transports blood and plasma throughout our body. Last week, we did something on arginine. I will be doing today on Nattokinase, and we're going back to caffeine. And we're going to do a whole bunch of series on it. And we're going to also look at the digestive system. All right. So let me bring this up, and we're going to go right into talking about and nattokinase. So let's go here. So by the way, anyone who wants to know more about VA Shiva, just go to vashiva.com and you can get all the background on what we do there. So let's talk about nattokinase. Now you notice I have a picture of soybeans in the background here. And nattokinase, as you'll find out, comes from fermented soy. Okay, that is a source of nattokinase, fermented soy. It's not just soy, but it's fermented soy, and we're going to find out why. So this is what we're going to go over today, okay? We're going to go over understanding what is nattokinase, right? What are its biological effects, right? What are its effects on biological function, its health benefits? What are its effects on cardiovascular health, and how much of it should you take, dosaging wise, and the clinical evidence and everything. This is not a medical program. This is a program that's based on looking at the known science and reporting that using our technology side of self. So what is nattokinase? Okay, first of all, nattokinase, whenever you see ASE, I want to quick chemistry. If you ever see anything with ending with ASE, that typically means it is what is called a enzyme. Okay, it's an enzyme, and there's different kinds of enzymes. So what are enzymes? Enzymes are those things chemically which support a reaction. They're a catalyst, it's called. So if you have, let's say, a reaction of two molecules coming together to create another molecule, okay, or to bind together, that's a chemical reaction. A enzyme is something that accelerates that process. It's a catalyst, okay? So enzymes are extremely important for biological function because the enzymes make sure that energy-wise, you're reducing what's called the reaction rate. And this is sort of basic chemistry. So enzymes are extremely, extremely important to biological function, but typically, whenever you see ASE, that means it is typically an enzyme, okay? So let's go back here. So nattokinase is what is called a proteolytic enzyme, okay? And it's naturally secreted by the bacterium. So different bacteria can, put out different compounds. But there's a bacterium called Bacillus subtilis. And this bacteria creates nattokinase. Now, Bacillus subtilis is used to ferment boiled or steamed soybeans to make natto, a traditional Japanese food. So it's like, when you make yogurt, or many cultures, you'll find the cultures that over many, many centuries learned to live long and live healthy. They started recognizing food as medicine, and they had a way of incorporating particularly these fermented products into their existence. And as we later on start talking about the digestive system and the brain, you start realizing that there's a gut-brain axis, that the gut and the brain are related. As above, so below, as below, so above. Things are, again, systems approach, which again, I'm a dedicated to teaching everyone in the world and dedicated to educating you to teach others, teaches us that systems of systems are connected. So these fermented products are extremely valuable to all aspects of health. And so most cultures, so you'll find out in, be it a European culture or in Asia Pacific culture or a Native American culture, all these cultures, traditional cultures or Indian culture, they always had fermented products because they knew these fermented products were very valuable to digestive health, all different types of health, okay? Someone just said 3 brains, exactly. We have multiple brains. So when we look at nattokinase, you realize that it comes from this Bacillus subtilis, which is used to ferment boiled or steamed soybeans. Now, natto is believed to be a significant contributor to the longevity of the Japanese population, who live quite long. Been a lot of studies on this showing that particularly traditional in traditional Japanese culture. And then what you also note here is that nattokinase was discovered by Dr. Hiroyuki Sumi during his search for natural treatment for blood clots. Okay, so blood clots, blood clotting. So there are people, like if you talk to as people age, typically Plavix is a pharmaceutical drug, and there's different blood thinners, Coumadin. that people are on. By the way, the average 82-year-old, at least in the United States, is on 12 different drugs. One of them people typically put on are things that thin the blood. So Hiroyuki Sumi was looking for a natural compound that could basically break down blood clots, which means thin the blood, okay? Someone said, do you know if you could collab with Young Pharaoh again? Definitely, yeah. Young Pharaoh is great. I haven't spoken to him in a while. I know he's been doing a new project, but I will connect back out with him. Anyway, so the idea of thinning the blood is something people do for cardiovascular function. There are a number of pharmaceutical drugs. So Hiroyuki Sumi was looking for something that could thin it, and that's where the discovery of nattokinase came from, all right? Now, it's an interesting product. As I shared with you, for example, when we looked at arginine, we almost had like 130,000 papers written on it. Now, this is a relatively new compound on the scene. You can see there's about 183 research articles. I mean, this is relatively to the things that we've talked about before, relatively small amount. There's been about 7 clinical trials. And it's really over the last 30 years that people really started studying. Sort of in the mid-90s is when really a lot of research took off, okay? So you can see not a lot of articles. Now with CytoSolve, as you know, the technology that I created for my PhD work, we have the ability to take these papers without cherry picking, bring them together, and start really analyzing the biomolecular function. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. So if you look here, if we look at the biomolecular functions here, I want you to understand that, by the way, if you want to know more about CytoSolve, it's a technology I created out of my PhD. I'll play a quick video on this. But we have the ability to take these research articles, distill them, so we can look at, okay, these research articles on nattokinase, how do they have to do with a particular systems architecture, in this case, cardiovascular function, and we'll go over that, we'll summarize that, and then we can understand how that product affects that at the molecular systems level. So, and by the way, the reason I built CytoSolve is when you look at the way pharma companies build their products, it's a very open systems process. And by the way, when you take the course, you'll understand that the Truth, Freedom, and Health Warrior course, the Foundations of Systems course, they typically take a compound, they do test tube testing, then they test on animals, and then they go to phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 in the clinical process to actually discover whether this drug hurts human beings or not. This is a long process, it takes 13 years, a lot of money, and many times what comes out of here has detrimental effects because it doesn't help everyone, it has side effects. So the reason I created CytoSolve was a way to figure out how to do this using the computer so we can not kill animals. So I want to just take a moment to stop to share that with you. What is CytoSolve? Because that'll give you the context of how this technology works.
Who would have ever thought someone like me would invent email and create CytoSolve to revolutionize health for personalized and precision medicine, a system for delivering the right medicine for the right person at the right time? I was born a low-caste untouchable in India's caste system, a system of aristocracy, oppression, and racism. As a child, I observed my grandmother, a poor village farmer, practice Siddha, India's oldest system of medicine, to heal local villagers by observing their face, to know their unique constitution, to deliver a unique combination of foods, healing herbs, and massage. The caste system and her abilities to heal inspired me to understand the interconnectedness of all life. My name is Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. I'm an MIT PhD, a Fulbright scholar, a scientist, technologist, and inventor. My family and I left India to come to America on my 7th birthday. As a 14-year-old, I began working as a full-time research fellow at Rutgers Medical School to unravel the mysteries of sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS, and created the world's first email system long before I ever heard of MIT. As I traverse academia over the next 3 decades, I observe self-serving academics, never solving real problems, writing grant after grant, competing for tenure, while diminishing real science and real scientists, pushing a reductionist science to destroy the scientific method. Like the blind men who never saw the whole elephant, but the parts, they delivered a dismembered view of reality. I observe Big Pharma use such reductionism, wasting billions year after year to fund research in test tubes, killing animals, and using the poor as guinea pigs pigs for clinical testing to create products that even the FDA no longer allowed. Not only Big Pharma practiced this reductionism, but also the elites of Big Vitamin, Big Green, and Big New Age, with gurus and yogis, empowered by Hollywood celebrities, selling one supplement after another based on a cherry-picked science. All that changed in 2003 when the Human Genome Project ended, revealing that humans have the same number of genes, about 20,000, as that of a worm, giving rise to a systems biology. We realized that one-size-fits-all medicine was a failure. We realized their medicines were killing us, making today's generation's lifespan shorter than any previous generation. Obesity, heart disease, deaths from adverse reaction to drugs, confusion on what diet, what supplements, and who to believe is what they have delivered you. They push natural and organic products for your beauty and wellness, while their real solution is their plastic surgeons and Botox. We've been sold out. It's time for real science, a system science that interconnects the parts to discover truth, to know what really works, to get the health we need and deserve. This is why I created Cytosolve. Cytosolve is about truth, freedom, and health versus power, profit, and control. Cytosolve is a revolutionary technology integrating bioinformatics, computational biology, mathematical modeling, decentralization to reveal the truth. Cytosolve computes trillions of potential combinations of biomolecular interactions to discover what actually works based on the actual science. No reductionism, no cherry picking. Cytosolve's predictive modeling has been proven accurate time and time again, matching laboratory results. Cytosolve discovers synergistic combinations of compounds to maximize health and reduce toxicity. For example, we know curcumin from turmeric and resveratrol from red grapes alleviate inflammation, but how much should we combine? Current methods are hand-waving at best. Here, with Cytosolve, we first model the control condition with no curcumin and no resveratrol to simulate high inflammation with the cytokine level at 0.15 micromolar. Next, we add just 5 micromolars of curcumin. The inflammation drops to 0.05. Next, we use 5 micromolars of resveratrol and the inflammation drops from 0.15 to 0.06. But when we combine curcumin and resveratrol of 3 micromolars of curcumin and 2 micromolars of resveratrol, inflammation drops from 0.15 to 0.03, far lower, nearly 200% less than just one compound alone. That's the synergy principle of system science. We've all had enough of their fake and reductionist science. They think we'll simply keep buying their marketing, their celebrities, and their products that can never truly heal us. We don't need them. Great things come when we integrate the best of things. It's our time. It's time we delivered solutions for ourselves. It's time for truth, freedom, and health. It's time for Cytosolve. Welcome.
All right, so that gives you a background on Cytosolve. Now, using Cytosolve is how we actually look at nattokinase and cardiovascular health. And a number of you are saying you want to hear about caffeine. We will do caffeine. I wanted to do nattokinase because I think it's a very interesting product because very few people have heard about it. And I think it's valuable because sometimes it's good to go look at some new things, which I enjoy doing. So that's why, and we'll come back to caffeine definitely tomorrow. So that's what's been going on with Big Pharma. And you can see the reason Big Pharma is in the conditions, they spend a lot of money on R&D and they're finding less and less new compounds. This is why they need the jabination or the jabs, as I talk about, to survive. So anyway, one of the cool things I want to talk about is we have created a product. Our first time, we've been helping many other companies use Cytosolve to figure out combinations, but we have created our own product called MV25, and you can see it's under the brand Dr.SHIVA, which are really going to recognize people, a very scientific systems approach. MV in physics means mass times velocity, momentum. And the product that we've created literally comes from using Cytosolve. So as the back of the label says, it says this product was formulated using the Cytosolve computational systems biology platform, a technology for precision and personalized health, invented by Dr. Shiva during his doctoral research at MIT. This formulation results from integrating thousands of peer-reviewed scientific papers across 4 decades and 68 research institutions and computing trillions of potential combination biomolecular interactions to discover an optimal synergy of compounds that downregulate the biomarkers of discomfort and healing. Cytosolve means this formula has been optimized to maximize the benefits and bioavailability of minimizing toxicity based on current research curated by Cytosolve. As the science advances, so will this formulation. So the point I'm saying is, you'll notice that's what Cytosolve optimizes. We ran all these trillions of biochemical reactions, and the real value is this product is a synergy of natural ingredients for relieving discomfort and inflammatory response. And it's clean and it's GMP certified. So everyone should go check it out. You can go to BHShiva.com. go to the shop and you can look at it there to know more. Because of COVID, we had all sorts of logistics problems in terms of getting caps, but more is coming in, so you can pre-order now for the next round. Thank you. So let's go to nattokinase. So nattokinase, what is nattokinase? Well, first of all, as many of you know, I always like to look at the chemical structure of these compounds, and you can see here's a chemical structure of nattokinase. It's an alkaline serine protease, okay? And it's made up of 275 amino acid residues, and its molecular weight is about 28 kilodalton, okay? So let me go back to this here, and those of you who are joining us, this is Dr. Shiva, and we're doing a talk on nattokinase and cardiovascular health. So this is what nattokinase, the molecular structure looks like. It's made up of 275 amino acid residues. And you can see the structure is quite fascinating. It's, connected by this little bridge here, right? But it is made up of 275 amino acid residues, which means 275 amino acid components. And it's a serine protease, and it cleaves proteins at the serine residue. So this is, again, a protease, which means it's an enzyme which facilitates chemical reaction. This does this by cleaving, which means cutting proteins at the serine residue. Okay, we'll talk about that. So what are the biological effects of nattokinase? What are the biological effects? Well, first of all, it's antithrombotic, which is very, very important. Thrombosis, right? Very important for cardiovascular health. Antihypertensive, again, very good for cardiovascular health. Anti-arteriosclerotic, very good for cardiovascular health. Lipid lowering, antiplatelet, which means anticoagulant, and it also protects the brain. So, and again, this is all coming from the research that we've distilled at Cytosolve. So those are the biological benefits. What are the health benefits? Well, it has multiple health benefits, as you can see here. And I want to result the ones that are in the literature from the science side that's been done across those papers that we talked about earlier. Infertility, Alzheimer's disease, heart disease, peripheral artery disease, muscle spasms, CFD, angina, hemorrhoids, varicose veins, fibromyalgia, endometriosis. A lot of things involving, if you notice, heart disease, peripheral, involving blood, right? Varicose veins, endometriosis, vascular vessels and hemorrhoids, etc. So a multiple number of health benefits. So let's, we want to, first of all, take a step back, and we're looking at nattokinase, which itself is a compound, a system, and how it affects something called the cardiovascular system. So I think it'd be valuable to just take a quick step back, as someone just said, natto is a superfood, okay? John, I think you're nailing something here, and we're going to understand why. So the cardiovascular system is the system of interest today. So let's go look at the cardiovascular system, okay? When you look at the cardiovascular system, what is it made up of? As we talked about earlier, just for quick review, the cardiovascular system is really a transport system of the body. It is composed of three important elements. It's composed of the heart, which is the pump. It's composed of the vessels, and it's composed of the thing that it's transporting, right? Which is blood. So again, to be clear, the cardiovascular system is composed of three things. It's composed of your heart, which pumps blood, second item, and then it pumps it through what? It pumps it through things called blood vessels. And those blood vessels are composed of different kinds of, like you have major highways, and then you have your alleyways, and then you have your, turnoff sections, right? So that's called your vessels. And those vessels are really composed of a couple of important components. One of those components is literally the vascular system. And by the way, the heart, everyone knows, is a powerful muscle. That's the thing that's pumping all this blood. And then the blood vessels are the things that carry blood and nutrients to all parts of the body. And the blood is composed of a couple of things. It's composed of blood cells and plasma, right? Which are important for your immune system. So the red blood cells are the things that carry oxygen with it as they're coming from the lungs. And the white blood cells are the things that provide immune support. So the cardiovascular system is extremely important because it's not just pumping oxygen, but it's also important for health. When you exercise, all these things are important because you're also pumping and supporting your immune system. You see, these systems are interconnected. Cardiovascular system is connected to the respiratory system, but it's also connected to your immune system. Exercise, right? Very, very important. So when we look at this, I want to take it. So again, by the way, over here, you see, here's the heart, right? The heart actually pumps blood from the left ventricle. The ventricles are the stuff on the bottom. You have really 4 chambers here. The top 2 chambers, which are called the atrium, the bottom 2 chambers, which are called the right and left ventricle. So here we see blood coming in, right? Fresh blood comes in from the lungs, right? That's the red oxygenated blood into the left atrium, and then the left atrium, and then the left ventricle through the aorta pumps this amazing oxygenated blood through your system, and then deoxygenated blood is coming back through the vena, through the vena cava, which is a main vein, just like the artery is a main, the aorta is a main, artery pumping out stuff. The vena cava is a main vein bringing back all this oxygenated blood to the right atrium, which is the top right chamber of the heart, and that pumps down into the right ventricle, which then sends it off to the lungs, which oxygenate. You breathe in, and you get great oxygenated blood, and so on. All right. So that's a cardiovascular system. Very quick review. Some of you may have studied that in health class, or biology class. Now, the importance of the cardiovascular system, you have all these amazing vasculature, okay? Cardiovascular system, this vasculature. Well, the cardiovascular system consists of blood vessels. And there's really, here are the types of vessels. You have arteries, veins, and capillaries. So the arteries are the things that carry oxygenated blood. The veins are the things that have deoxygenated blood. And the interconnection between the arteries and the veins are these things called capillaries. And the capillaries are the smaller blood vessels that deliver nutrients and oxygen literally down to the tissue, right? And they also bring the deoxygenated blood back to the veins, and they pump it out, right? So you hear arteries are bringing fresh blood, right, through the capillaries, and they oxygenate the nutrients in the cells. And then the capillaries are then taking away from the cells the waste and the carbon dioxide, and they're sending it to the veins. All right, very cool. Now, what are these arteries composed of? Well, if you look closer, the structure of the blood vessels has really 3 types of things known as adventitia, the tunica media, and the tunica intima. Okay, what are those things? Well, media, right, which is the middle portion of by the way, the arteries and the vein contain all 3 structures, but capillaries only have the tunica intima, okay? This structure, which is composed of the endothelial cells. So basically, what is a capillary is made up of? The inner layer is made up of endothelial cells, okay? So the small structures between the arteries right here and the endothelial, known as capillaries, are made of only the tunica intima, which are endothelial cells. The arteries, which are thicker like the veins, have all 3 structures. They have the endothelial, which is the inner part right here, which is the tunica intima. They have the middle part, which is the tunica media, which is really smooth muscle, right? It's a middle layer composed of elastic and muscular tissue, right? Very important. Again, exercise, right? You exercise these muscles. And the tunica adventia, okay, is the outer layer, which supports the structural support. So the tunica adventia is really like the thing that's the insulation that gives the structure support. You have the musculature, which is a tunica media, both here and here. And then the inner layer is the endothelium. All right, so now you got that. So an important thing to understand is that one of the most important molecules, the discovery, some people have say of the last century, was nitric oxide. It was the basis of, in fact, the pharma guys creating Viagra, which essentially relaxes relaxes the smooth muscle. So nitric oxide is a very, very important pervasive molecule that supports the cardiovascular system. Okay. So again, what is nitric oxide? So let's take an important look at that, because it's very important to understand in this context. Well, nitric oxide, as you'll find out, is a vasodilator, right? Its key role is maintaining blood pressure in your body. Very important. anti-artherogenic, right? Starts arteriosclerosis. It's generated when eNOS, which is, we'll come to this, which is an enzyme, catalysis of arginine. And when you exercise, for example, and you run and all this blood is moving through your body, that triggers the nitric oxide production. Let me just repeat that again. At a very practical level, you start running, you start doing vigorous exercise. The flow of blood through all those vessels I just showed you, so the flow of blood through your capillaries, and all that flow of blood releases nitric oxide, okay? Exercise is important because you're moving blood, and the physical, it's like water is going down a stream or a river, and as that water is going down the river bed, the floor of that river bed is composed of a cell structure. Remember, these are in the capillaries, called endothelial cells. That's how powerful it is. So you have these capillaries. The surface of those capillaries is composed of endothelial cells. So as blood is moving, it is touching the walls of that structure, your capillaries, which have all these like tiles, known as endothelial cells. Those endothelial cells, when they interact with the flow, guess what? They release nitric oxide. And so this was some original research we did in our lab at MIT using CytoSolve and the work of other researchers at Brigham and Women's Hospital at MIT. And we contributed the CytoSolve technology to actually understand the mechanics. But it's important, again, from a systems approach to understand that process. So let me just share with you some of that to just give you the background here. So again, nitric oxide is extremely important. So by the way, here is, let's say, look at a capillary, okay? Again, the surface of it is composed of the tunica intima, which is the endothelial. So all those little hexagons you see right there, think of them, those hexagons, as literally being, imagine you have your bathroom floor, and you have those tiles, right? Those tiles on the bathroom floor are literally endothelial cells. So your capillaries are composed of these tiles, which are the endothelial cell. And when blood flows through it, guess what happens in a very powerful series of reactions? So blood, those are those arrows, is flowing through it. In the presence of arginine, which is what we talked about last week, your body will release nitric oxide because the blood flow over the endothelial. Just think about the blood as water racing down a river, and there's rocks on the floor of the river. The rocks are like the endothelial tissue. When the flow of blood flows over the endothelial, it causes nitric oxide production. Now, the endothelial nitric oxide synthase, that enzyme, right? It's an enzyme, ASE, eNOS, endothelial, which is the E, nitric oxide synthase, which is the enzyme, right? eNOS converts. So you have this eNOS, blood flows through here. In the presence of eNOS, it converts arginine into nitric oxide and citrulline, two products. So NO production, why is this important? NO production, this should actually, it's NO, it's not no production, it's NO production leads to vasodilation and maintenance of blood pressure. Extremely important that you have NO. Nitric oxide is what maintains blood pressure. Let me repeat that again. Nitric oxide is important, the right levels of NO to maintain your blood pressure. So you exercise, the NO gets released, and there's other in the presence of arginine. So you need, by the way, we talked about yesterday or last week, arginine is important because arginine is what's called a semi-essential amino acid. You can get arginine from food, but ideally your body will make it if it's not stressed out and it's functioning well. So it's semi-essential, it's both. It's non-essential and essential. You can go look at the previous video. So that's what arginine does, okay? I mean, that's what nitric oxide is important for, okay? Now, we did quite a bit of research at MIT, Brigham, Harvard Medical School, and King's College. These were our partners. Andrew Koo, one of the PhD students at MIT, actually looked at this concept of when blood flows, what is actually occurring at the surface of the endothelial cell. So now we're zooming in. Just want to let you know, we've talked about the heart, the arteries, and the veins, and now we're looking microscope. We're zooming into the capillaries, and within the capillaries, we're zooming into the surface of the capillaries, which is the endothelial, and now we're zooming in onto the surface of that endothelial. So what happens when blood is flowing over that endothelial, okay? And what you find what's happening is that something quite amazing is happening from a system standpoint. So here, this blue represents all the blood flow occurring right here. Let me just show those guys, right, on Instagram. This is blood flow. And this is the endothelial cell. But what do you see on the surface of the endothelial cell are receptors? But over here is this little Christmas tree structure that everyone can see. It's called a glycocalyx. This is why I find this stuff so fascinating. It's almost like someone created all this. So here's a glycocalyx, which looks, so when the blood flows, it flows over this Christmas tree structure called a glycocalyx. And the blood flow moves a glycocalyx, which means it starts moving. And the mechanical force on the glycocalyx, this movement, initiates conversion of arginine to nitric oxide by the enzyme. And it goes through all these chemical systems. Very powerful. Now, how does this occur? Well, when you start looking at the literature, you find out remember I told you what Cytosolve is able to do is we're able to look at all the literature. We don't cherry pick. So we're able to find that, hey, wait a minute, there's all this literature out there which talks about little pieces of the chemical reactions involved when the glycocalyx moves, how nitric oxide is released. Well, so this is not an easy thing. You got to connect all of these things together, okay? That is what a systems approach is. That's why I want all of you to, the same thing, connecting things together, that's when you find truth, be it political, biological, technological, etc. That's why the way I want you to support you is I want all of you to learn the system science. I teach it every Monday evenings online, and we've created a whole course online. So you can see the scrolling. Go to truthfreedomhealth.com and become a Truth, Freedom, and Health warrior. You're contributing to you. And that's what makes all of this possible. It takes a lot of effort to put this educational programs, but you get a whole platform to learn and connect with people. But what you're seeing in this very powerful way is that the body at the molecular systems level is all this amazing chemical reaction. So with Cytosolve, we're able to interconnect all these chemical reactions. You wouldn't be able to do this without Cytosolve. So with Cytosolve, we're able to connect, and we actually were able to see how much nitric oxide, enos, which is the enzyme, is being released over time. So this is a simulation using Cytosolve. No animals were killed in this, okay? Someone said, what's the website again? You can go to truthfreedomhealth.com or vashiva.com/join. But here, this is Cytosolve's prediction without killing animals, integrating all those chemical reactions. Then what you see is these, so people say, well, is this simulation correct? Well, what Andrew Koo had done was these orange dots are actual wet lab experiments he did in the lab, okay? In the lab. And notice our results match. And same thing here, we're looking at protein. So what's important about this is that the technology of Cytosolve was able to accurately model on the computer what people are observing in the quote-unquote test tube, okay? Very powerful. And people didn't believe this was possible until this first research. And by the way, we published this not in some, random journal, but this is published in the second most important journals in the world, called Cell Biophysical Journal. You can see I was one of the senior authors. Again, these were all the collaborators: Andrew Koo, David Nordletten, Renato Umatan, Barak Yankama, Guillermo Garcia Cardena, and my advisor, Professor Dewey. Okay, so we've shown this now. So now that you understand, now that you all understand what is NATO, what is the cardiovascular system, let's put these systems together, okay? How does nattokinase affect this very complex cardiovascular system now that you know the background on all this, okay? So let's go look at that. Well, nattokinase is shown to reduce blood pressure. It's shown to dissolve blood clots via degradation of fibrin, and it prevents platelet aggregation. So it reduces blood pressure, it dissolves blood clots via degradation of fibrin, and it prevents platelet aggregation, okay? That's what nattokinase does. It does all of these very powerful things. How does it do it? Well, now I'm going to teach you a little bit of biochemistry, but we're going to use the Cytosolve approach. Again, we're using a systems approach. So you have this very complex system in your body. Right now, all these reactions are taking place. You take nattokinase in, how does that perturb the system, okay? So we're going to first look at hypertension. What is hypertension? Where you have high blood pressure. So what does nattokinase do to lower blood pressure? So let's go down, put the microscope, the cytosol microscope, and go really deep, okay, into understanding this. So what's going on here? Well, first of all, hypertension is caused by the constriction of the smooth muscle cells via renin-angiotensin pathway, okay? So that means you have these smooth muscle cells at the arteries, your capillaries, and all your aorta. And when that smooth muscle becomes constricted, right? And it becomes constricted because of the renin-angiotensin pathway. So what is that pathway? Okay, so listen carefully. We have angiotensin here, 1. So angiotensin 1, which is called Ang1, which is a hormone, is converted to angiotensin 2 by enzyme ACE. If you remember, ACE is the receptor that the COVID spike protein connects with, okay? So it's important to keep that in mind. So angiotensin 1 leads in the presence of ACE, angiotensin 1, so you need ACE, which is the enzyme ACE, so angiotensin 1 is converted to angiotensin 2, okay? So angiotensin 1 goes to angiotensin 2, you need ACE for that conversion. And there's a receptor, so this line here represents the cell surface of the muscle cell, okay? So here's a muscle cell, here's a cell surface. So angiotensin 2 lands on the angiotensin 2 receptor. There's a receptor on the cell surface, and that leads to more calcium, leads to increase in calcium ion influx in the smooth muscle cells of the blood vessel. So now you get more calcium coming in. And the calcium ions, increase in calcium ion, and the calcium ions upregulate, which means increase the enzyme myosin light chain kinase, so myosin light chain kinase that constricts the blood vessel. So again, follow this. Let's follow this through. This is how you get hypertension. Angiotensin 1, in the presence of ACE, which is this enzyme, converts to angiotensin 2. Angiotensin 2, this molecule lands on, here's your muscle cell, the surface of that muscle cell, and that leads to calcium ion influx, which means that goes up, increase in calcium ion influx. And this leads to myosin light chain kinase, which is another enzyme, which actually constricts the smooth muscle, okay? So I hope you get that. So there's a series of chemical reactions from angiotensin 1 to 2 that lands on your muscle cell, and it constricts your muscle cells, okay? So it's the renin-angiotensin reaction, and ACE, which is, by the way, that enzyme receptor that's on cells, okay, ACE, which is, by the way, where also the COVID coronavirus spike protein lands, just as an aside, okay? But ACE is responsible for the constriction of blood vessels leading to hypertension, blood clots, those kind of things. So just keep that in mind. So there's this system that is involved in the creation of hypertension. Well, guess what nattokinase does? What does nattokinase do? What nattokinase does, as you can see by this thing, is natto comes in here and it blocks ACE. So nattokinase prevents hypertension by inhibiting the enzyme ACE and stopping the effects of Ang2. Okay? So blocks it right up here. So Ang2 never gets created, and it can't then lead to this cascade leading. Exactly. Someone said, Casamari on Instagram said a domino effect. Right. So this is, this domino effect, but we stop ACE and it stops this constriction. Okay. So that's how it lowers blood pressure. Anti-hypertensive effect. So that's the first thing. Any questions? Everyone clear? All right. Simple, right? But again, what you just learned was a systems approach. There's a system in place, and this, when you take nattokinase, it's a interaction which stops that. Again, this is why systems thinking is important, because you can start seeing how things relate to each other. All right. Next thing we want to go through is we want to see the next effect, right? We know that it lowers blood pressure, but this is quite interesting. It breaks up blood clots. That's called fibrinolytic effect. Fibrinolytic. Fibrin is a protein that's involved in clotting of the blood. Okay? Fibrin is a protein that's involved in clotting of the blood. And fibrin, together with platelets, binds with red blood cells to form a blood clot. So fibrin, that protein, together with platelets, okay, binds with red blood cells. So basically your red blood cells start aggregating to form a blood clot. Your blood should be flowing, right? So here's your red blood cells are flowing. Here are these little yellow things called platelets, okay? So fibrin together with these platelets, and here are these fibrin strands, it sort of starts causing this clotting. And what does nattokinase do? So the development of a blood clot is when fibrin strands adhere to the plug to form an insoluble clot. Okay, you can't break these up. It's not good. Okay, you don't want these blood clots. Okay, what nattokinase does, it breaks down fibrin directly. So nattokinase comes and it breaks down the fibrin. It's the stuff that brings these clots together and thereby destroying the blood clot. Okay. By the way, people are asking the website. Everyone wants to become a Truth, Freedom, and Health warrior. I'm getting a bunch of things. Go to vashiva.com or truthfreedomhealth.com. It's right there on the bottom. vashiva.com/truthfreedomhealth.com. Let me just post it. So vashiva.com/join or Truth Freedom. It leads to the same thing. truthfreedomhealth.com/join. And I'll come back and I'll talk about that. But yeah, I need to be a little bit better at doing the salesmanship, but where you can sign up. Sorry about that. But go to truthfreedomhealth.com or vashiva.com/join, and you can become a Truth, Freedom, and Health warrior. But again, you're supporting your own educational process. So please invest in yourself. It's the biggest investment you can do. Education is infrastructure for you. Someone said, can I have a private consultation? Sure, you can email me at vashiva@vashiva.com. All right. So again, second thing is nattokinase literally busts up that insoluble fibrin so you break up blood clots. The next thing is anti-platelet effect. So what does that mean? So under trauma or inflammatory conditions, your blood clotting factors such as thromboxane B2 are upregulated. So when you have trauma or inflammatory conditions, thromboxane B2, okay, is upregulated. Now, thromboxane B2 promotes the activation of platelets and their aggregation leading to blood clot formation, right? So that's what it does. And what nattokinase prevents is blood clot formation by direct inhibition of thromboxane B2. Now, look, so under trauma or injury, right, you have these blood clots that form. So you got to be careful, obviously, right? So, you know, obviously clotting is good. I slice my hand, or God forbid I do that, right? Don't want to knock on wood that doesn't happen, but something happens to me, right? You want clotting to occur, right? Because you don't want to be bleeding, right? If your blood is too thin and you don't have clotting factors. So that's why some of these blood clotting medications people take or or blood thinning or you got to be careful. If someone gets a cut, they could keep bleeding. You need clotting, okay? So again, food is medicine. Medicine, so we have to be careful. Someone's writing to me, can I take too much? Obviously, right? Clotting will stop you from bleeding. Exactly. So we need to be appreciative of this. Food is medicine. That's why dosaging is important. We'll come back to what the literature says about dosaging, okay? Someone says, so exercise and eat natto. Yeah. So the Japanese culture, natto is included in their culture. But it supports cardiovascular health. But again, if someone's taking blood, Plavix, and all these things, and they do nattokinase, people have to obviously let their doctors know, and you have to be prudent about all these things, right? Just like research is showing, if you're taking green tea and you're taking other things, right? These are all things that can have effects. So our goal is to raise our consciousness. That's what we want to do at Be Shiva. It's not about left or right. It's not about, oh, I eat healthy and I take all these vitamins and I don't do pharmaceutical drugs, or that person does pharmaceutical drugs and they do this. It's about recognizing everything is a system. Everyone's body is a unique system. And how these things combine is what we need to raise our consciousness. Okay, I'm doing that and I'm doing this. Let's just raise awareness, okay? So someone asking, how about smokers taking this? Good question. Please send me an email so I can do some research, vashiva@vashiva.com, okay? Right. By the way, our movement is not just truth, freedom, and not just health. It's truth, freedom, and health. We talk about election integrity. We talk about, the masks and the jabs and all that, and the importance of science and innovation. This is a holistic movement for truth, freedom, and health. Someone just asked that here. All right. So as you can see, the nattokinase stops thromboxane, which then, stops blood clot formation. Now, given all the questions everyone's been asking online here, so what I just shared with you, natto has a multiplicative effect, affects multiple subsystems. So you have to be aware of this holistic approach. So I want you to just take what I've just shared with you here at the molecular systems level. Now let's go to the bigger system, the political system. And we have to recognize we have to take a synergistic approach. For far too long, if you look at the entire society as a molecular system, how do we, interact with the world around us? And what we realize is that interaction with the world around us also requires a systems approach. And that's why we call it truth, freedom, and health. You have people who've been fighting the movement for truth and research and science. That's all great. That's one movement. And then you have people who've been fighting for freedom, First Amendment, Second Amendment, right? Very important. And then the people who've been fighting for health and organic foods and getting rid of Monsanto. All these movements, unfortunately, have been separated, right? What we want to do is we want to bring them all together, right? And that's the movement for truth, freedom, and health. Because without freedom, you don't have the ability to fight for truth. And without truth and freedom, you can't get to health. And without health, we don't have the strength to fight for freedom and truth. So that's why we need to go beyond left or right. And this interconnection is what we teach at the Be Enslaved movement for truth, freedom, and health. And by the way, our movement is growing explosively. My goal is this is a movement to raise people's consciousness. Imagine you have an ocean of stillness. One drop hits that, you create a ripple, okay? And that ripple creates a wave. Now, but it's consciousness. Our goal is with the science of systems to raise all of your consciousness. That's what this is ultimately about. And you need to do this for you. Everyone goes through their own journey. The movement for truth, freedom, and health is ultimately an inner journey, but it's an outer journey. They're interconnected. So I want to play this video for you, which is a hard-hitting video, which talks about on the political level why we need to bring this together. More importantly, we have created that platform for you. This is for you. So when you contribute to this, you're contributing to your education. So go to vashiva.com/join or truthfreedomhealth.com and become a member of this movement. And let me just play for you. I'm going to take a quick break, get a couple sips of water, and then we'll wrap up nattokinase. But I want to play this video. So I want to make you all part of this community. I want you to become educators. I want you to become educated to become a truth, freedom, and health systems revolutionary, a warrior scholar, and etc. So let me share our powerful video here, which talks about the need to apply this systems thinking at the political level for our truth, freedom, and health. So here you go. Allowed our country to be taken over from within, and the end goal is you will have a homogenized world where we will become slaves, because there is a condition among the elites that really thinks they're better than you, deep down inside them, that you don't deserve the freedoms you have. They don't. This reality is what people need to wake up to, and we need to all unite working people. There's only one movement that can do that. And that is the movement that we started creating here in Massachusetts, the movement for truth, freedom, and health. Look, I've been a student of politics since I was a 4-year-old kid, studying revolutionary movements, left wing, right wing. There's a physics, there's a nuclear science to destroying the establishment. To build a bridge, you need to understand Newton's equation. You need to understand the laws of gravity. You need to understand Poisson's ratio. There is a way to build a revolution. And that's why I put this together. My goal is to train an army of truth, freedom, and health leaders. We don't need followers like social media. We need leaders, but they need training, because the educational system does not teach them history, nothing. So in 3 hours, that's what I've started doing. That's the solution. We got to train people. First, with understanding what a system is. The second is understanding the interconnection between truth, freedom, and health. Freedom is the ability to move freely, communicate freely, right? Talk freely. Without freedom, you cannot convert ideas, hypothesis into truth, which is science. And without freedom, you can't really get to truth. And without truth, you make up fake problems and fake solutions, which means you destroy our health. And without health, which is the infrastructure of us and our body, you can't fight for freedom. Third concept is it has to be bottoms up. Working people, people who work uniting. And what the right wing has done is whenever you say working people unite, that must be communist. Meanwhile, they've let the Democrats run unions, which suppress workers, completely corrupt. But when you look at the arc of American history, it's been when working people came up. We need to go local. Every solution I'm coming up with as a part of this movement, we're giving the science, which is the truth, and then we tell people what they can do on the ground. Like with election fraud, you don't need to wait for some lawyer. Our goal is to train people, Dave, to go local, to go local, to go local, fight locally. Forget lawyers, forget politicians, forget celebrities. You got to learn politics, and there is a science to it. They lock us down, we should be ready to shut them down. And the fourth part of this principle is a not so obvious establishment. So when you look at a system, there's always something that disturbs you from getting to your goal. Well, the biggest disturbance is a not so obvious establishment, which are those people who claim they're for you, on the left and the right. The Al Sharptons who tell black people I'm for you, the Tucker Carlsons. Do you think any true anti-establishment person will ever be on Fox or CNN? I don't think so. They both mislead working people back into the establishment. Without this solid understanding of political physics and theory, you're screwed. You're going to follow on the left wing, Bernie Sanders. Oh, he said something, or Robert Kennedy, scumbags. Or you're going to follow, some right-wing talk show host. They're not going to lead us to liberation. It's us. And that political physics, it's a nuclear science of change. Bottoms up. We have to organize to understand that there is people who talk a good game and then look at what they actually do, left and right. I'm sorry, Sean Hannity may say some good things, but I don't see the urgency in his voice to get something done. And it can only come when you weaponize yourself with the right knowledge. You need to be able to identify a rat. Christ didn't go after the Romans, right? It was the Pharisees and the Sadducees who screwed him up. His own quote unquote people. And that's where we're at. So these four concepts I've built into a curriculum. People can go to BeAShiva.com, and it's an educational program. We need to train people in political theory. You need to have physics, and I've created that curriculum. People need to get educated. We need to get educated fast. And within a half an hour, I can teach people. 2 years of MIT control systems, I teach people those concepts. Then I apply it, anyone can understand it. And then you say, oh, I got to build a bottoms-up movement. They have to get politically astute, and then they have to go locally and act, not sit there on social media. They have to act locally, defy locally, do civil obedience locally, but with knowledge on how to build a movement. The Senate campaign's expanded to the Movement for Truth, Freedom, and Health, and they can find it on V as in Victor, A, Shiva, VAShiva.com, so people can sign in, they can get access to a bunch of videos. If they want to take a course and become a Truth, Freedom, Health leader, I offer a full scholarship there. But we want people to make a commitment that they'll study, that they'll get certified, that they'll go do activities on the ground. So go to VAShiva, Victory America Shiva, VAShiva.com. All right, everyone. So go become a Truth, Freedom, and Health warrior scholar. It's probably, as we refine our understanding of what we're doing here, you're actually becoming a warrior and a scholar. You're learning, but you're also becoming a warrior. A warrior, by the way, is someone who fights for truth and is also a healer. You're learning how to heal yourself, your body, those things around you. But it starts with understanding the science of systems. So please do this for you. Everyone, I'm on my journey, you're on your journey, but there is a science of systems that will help you raise your consciousness. By the way, let me go back to Nattokinase. But it's important to understand that we've created this, the gift here is we've created a platform for you. So please take advantage of it. It's really for you. And when you go to this platform, you'll find out is you log in, we give you all these amazing tools, you get education. And the goal is we want you to get educated or be enslaved. You get incredible amount of educational tools. You're going to understand the science of systems. You're going to get the book, System and Revolution. And you get access to a tool called Your Body, Your System, which will actually help you understand what kind of system you are. When you're off course, you can help take charge of your health. And all of you who've been giving contributions of 25 or more get access to the book, these tools, and a whole bunch of other things. Those of you who are giving 100 or more, you'll get access not only to that, but you get access to the System Self Portal, where you can study on your own, you can educate others, you get access to a certification program, you get access to multiple scientific reports where it'll teach you how food is medicine. You'll also get access to 3 other books, okay? Tremendous amount of value. It's probably around close to $2,500 to $4,000 value. And then you get access to a detailed scientific analysis, which will teach you how the science of systems goes back thousands of years. And then that's where people are contributing 100 or more. But you're contributing to yourself. You're not, I don't want you to think you're giving me or the movement. Please do it for you. Invest in yourself. But that's the education. But beyond the education, that's just one part of our platform. You can start building community. We've created an environment on the dashboard that's independent of big tech. You go in, you get access to a whole forum. There's a VA Shiva forum, a social media tool where you can interact with thousands of other people all over the planet on any issue you want without the fear of being kicked off because you're talking about vaccines or whatever you want to talk about. Then there's an entire social media platform similar to Facebook, but it's independent of big tech on our own servers where you can build community and you can support building the movement. There you go. And then finally, you can get activated. We want you to get on the ground and get activated, which means you can go and you can get access to all these amazing tools where you can start sharing the science, let's say, of masks with your friends. There's cards you can print out. The front has got our branding. The back of it has the science of the public health implications. Same with the immune system. We want to go beyond vax, anti-vax, okay? How that works. And then finally, I want you to take advantage of all these tools, okay? This is for you. It's been a huge effort, but it's there, okay? Then the next thing I want to talk about in closing is when we come to Nattokinase, you can take this approach. Everything I've just done with you here, by the way, is a cytosolver approach. We're looking at the molecular systems. When you go through the systems training course, you can also take a systems engineering approach. It's a different way to look at the problem and understand everything in the universe moves the forces of movement, can affect the forces of conversion, or affect the forces of structure. I can't do that entire talk here, but when you take the course, by the way, I personally teach the course every Monday evenings globally, and then you get access to all the videos online, etc. But this is not just about health. This is about intersecting truth, freedom, and health. You can use this knowledge to fight for truth, to fight for freedom, and to fight for health, and together, okay? So one of the important things, and when we look at the systems approaches, there's a tool you get when you contribute at the supporter level or warrior level, your body, your system, this gift that you get, that you can actually use to understand transport, conversion, and storage. You answer a set of questions, and it'll figure out what kind of system you are. That's that red dot. The red dot can fall anywhere on the space, but it's you. And then you can figure out when you're off course, that's a black dot, and then you can figure out how to bring the black dot to the red dot with food, supplements. You actually learn how your body is a system. And that's what the book, System and Revolution, and anyone who becomes a warrior obviously gets that. So what does Nattokinase do? Well, Nattokinase does something very interesting. It increases transport, right? It increases the flow of blood, right? So this is from a systems approach. It lowers conversion, right? It reduces the conversion of Ang1 to Ang2, right? So it blocks that. And Nattokinase lowers kapha, which is the storage. By the way, what I'm sharing with you here is storage is this component. So everything in the universe, when you take the course, you'll get it, is transport, conversion, storage. Truth is movement, right? I mean, freedom is movement of information. Conversion is a scientific method, and storage is health. So you can understand everything in the universe from the systems approach. So when you take Nattokinase, it increases movement, right? It's increasing flow. It's reducing this conversion, and it's lowering your blood vessels. There you go. So how much should you take, right? So wrapping up, how much Nattokinase should you be taking, right? How much is the dosage? Well, again, it's not a medical program. We look at the research and we distill it. So when we distill that research, this is what we find. We find out that Nattokinase, by the way, you can get Nattokinase at the health food store for anti-thrombosis effect, right? And that's 2,000 FU extract per day. That's from Kurawasa et al. For arteriosclerosis, 6,500 FU per day, okay? Someone said I'd like to learn about alpha-lipoic acid. Yeah, please send me an email to BA Shiva at BA Shiva, and I'll do a whole series on that. That's from 2017. and nattokinase for hypertension. So you can see anywhere between 2,000 FU to 6,500, based on the different things, helps in hypertension, okay? So nattokinase is a natural enzyme, in summary, found in fermented boiled soy. Fermented boiled soy. Fermented boiled soy. It doesn't just come in soy. It's got to be fermented. Nattokinase prevents hypertension by inhibiting vasoconstriction caused by the angiotensin II, right? It blocks that ACE. Nattokinase also dissolves blood clots by directly breaking down fibrin, which holds the clot together. And nattokinase prevents blood clots by downregulating platelet aggregation in the blood cells, all right? Right, so you can eat the soy in, by the way, fermented soy. There's a lot of people who talk about soy, which there's a huge controversy around soy because it creates estrogen, but we're talking about the Japanese and their traditional culture. They typically, what they did was they did, the fermented soy, okay? So we're not talking about soy, we're talking about the fermented soy, all right? So that's what's important to understand. Right, so one of the important things to understand is, FU units, right? What are FU units? Everyone's asking, right? So, in biology, right? FU is, let me bring this up, biology dosage, okay? So let me bring this up so everyone understands this, okay? So FU is fibrin units, okay? So if you go to this site on nattokinase, it's the milligrams versus fibrin units, okay? So FU really stands for fibrin units and is used for the enzyme nattokinase, right? And the standard for nattokinase is a potency around 2,000 FU. It's fibrin units. Thank you for asking, right? So what we're talking about is fibrin units. Fibrin is the units of fibrin it breaks down, okay? So fibrin units. So that's what you want to look at when you see the bottle of nattokinase. You'll see that. Now, again, you can again get it from food is medicine from the fermented soy itself. Okay. Yeah, someone said, I thought it was like tofu. Good question. There is tofu, and then there's fermented organic tofu. Very, very different. So those of you who are looking at introducing this in the diet, please do research on fermented soy. That is where you have the actual nattokinase value. All right. So in wrapping up, I want all of you to invest in you. I want all of you to recognize that this system science approach, we can apply it at the molecular level. We can apply it at the macro level. And we can apply it to understand politics. You can understand it for your health. But it is really the science of everything. So that's why I do these talks to, obviously, I'm giving a lot of information. It'll help your health. You'll understand it. But ultimately, you need to stand up on your own 2 feet and take a systems approach. So go to VAShiva.com, become a Truth, Freedom, and Health warrior. And by the way, the MV25 product, which by the way, our bottles are coming out. So those of you who are interested, this is developed from taking a systems approach. We did billions of systems calculations to understand and validate the right combination. For those of you who are still waiting, we have new shipments going out. All this COVID nonsense really hurt production, but we have more coming in, okay? All right, someone said, do you drink distilled water? Well, remember, distilled water is good for certain things if you want to get stuff out of you. But again, be careful, because when you drink distilled water, that you're also going to leach minerals out of your body. Okay, I should do a whole thing. Just someone remind me at VAShiva@VAShiva.com. I'll do a talk on distilled water versus, drinking normal water. Someone says, why are some people's platelets more than others? Well, remember, the platelet count is a function of 3 factors: genetics, epigenetics, and the stressors you're under. Always think about the world as your condition at any point in time is a function of your genetics. By the way, you can turn on, turn off genes, your epigenetics, that's what that is. And the conditions you're under: environment, atmosphere, food, etc. Okay, let me see if there's any. Thank you, everyone on Instagram. I'm sorry it's a little bit late, but good. All right. And in closing, by the way, everyone remember May 20th, we have our big hearing coming up. Again, everyone, I'm not our movement is not just focused on health, not just focused on truth, not just focused on, freedom. We're doing all. We have a big hearing coming up on May 20th because we're leading the charge in an important lawsuit that has not been dismissed. It's the federal court level about the fact that the government made Twitter silence political speech. In this case, it was me. I was exposing that the government was violating federal law. We had courtroom proof, and in order to conceal that, they went and they contacted Twitter, which is complete violation of the First Amendment. Those of you who want to help with that, please go to vashiva.com. Let me show you right now. A bunch of you are asking me. Go to vashiva.com, victoralphashiva.com. Let me show you there. If you go to vashiva.com, okay, go to vashiva.com. And if you go right to the main page here, we have this important lawsuit taking place. And there's an article that just came out. Let me log out of this. You can see it. Log out here. But if you guys go to vashiva.com, you'll see what's going on there, okay? So if you go right to vashiva.com, this is our website. But you'll see right here, there's a blog post which just came out, and it says you can go search for it too, but it's Dr. Shiva's historic First Amendment lawsuit. And by the way, to everyone, I'm representing myself here, okay? We're not taking, and I'm doing this all on my own. People would have spent millions of dollars. I did it on my own, filing this lawsuit. And all of you should know that when you contribute to your education, those contributions we're also using to support this lawsuit, okay? You're getting educated, but you can go to vashiva.com, and when you contribute, you're contributing to the fight for freedom. You're contributing to your fight for freedom, truth, and health. This is a movement. This is a public service movement by you, for you, and that's what it's about. So it's very exciting. So I want all of you to become part of this community. Our goal is we want 50,000 beacons of light, truth, freedom, and health all over the planet, but it begins with getting educated. Get educated or be enslaved. Truth, freedom, and health. Become a warrior scholar today. Tell your friends, share this video, and keep an eye out. Tomorrow morning, I'll be doing on caffeine and cardiovascular health. Everyone's been asking about that. Yes, if people want to go listen to the court suit, if you go there to that website, by the way, again, let me share this with you again. If you go to vashiva.com, okay, go to vashiva.com right here, and then right at this website, we have a ton of stuff there. If you scroll down, it's one of the featured blog posts, and you can bookmark this. It's right here, okay? And this is a site, and it gives you all the information. There's a press release here that'll tell you exactly what to do to become part, to join it. You can go, this is where you register for the court, but everything's up here, okay? And you have to register 2 days before if you want to zoom in, but I'm going to be it's going to be me against 5 lawyers, okay? The lawyers from Twitter, the lawyers from the government, the lawyers from NASCD, okay? So we have to all learn how to stand up on our own 2 feet and fight. Become a truth, freedom, and health warrior. Invest in yourself. Get educated or be enslaved. Thank you, everyone. Truthfreedomhealth.com. Yes, be well. Thank you.